This weekend, several political parties have been conducting their final rallies as we count down to Wednesday's general election. For more on how the campaigning has taken shape, I am joined by governance analyst, that is Zwelinzima Ndevu. Mr. Ndevu, a pleasure to have you on the program this afternoon. So as someone involved in public administration and political research, how would you describe the current political climate in South Africa as we approach these all-important elections?
Good afternoon and good afternoon to your listeners. As many people have said before, that this would be a very critical elections as many of our communities are despondent with the level of services that is provided by government and the unresponsive nature of our leadership. These elections are therefore going to be very important elections. We have seen that so many young people are also enthusiastic and willing and going to the voting station. So this, in that sense, is really exciting. But these elections are critical in the life of democracy of South Africa, as we would know that we are celebrating 30 years of democracy, and people are looking back and saying, how far have we gone? What do we need to do going forward? So these elections will determine what kind of leadership we'll have going forward and what kind of services will be provided. So that's critical.
So, Prof, this election marks the debut of South Africa's new electoral system, but also allowing independent candidates to run against established political parties. How significant do you believe this change is for South African democracy?
There has been an outcry that political parties choose their own leaders, choose who represent them. This gives ordinary members of society an opportunity to elect their own from within the communities who are not associated with only political parties. But we have seen with the elections, as you have indicated when you started with the interview, that many political parties have been going through their final rallies or the final leg of their rallies. We have not seen independent candidates doing as much as one would have hoped to do, doing as much campaign. So I do not think that while they are there and they have been allowed this time, they would not really make an impact in these elections. But in the next elections in 2029, that's probably where we would see the impact of this decision, but not now.
I'm sure you'd agree with me that service delivery and socio-economic conditions are quite critical election issues at this time. How are the major parties addressing these concerns in their campaigns? And what are the proposed solutions here?
It is very clear that service delivery will play a greater role in how people decide to vote and who they decide to vote for. And I've seen with many political parties, some of them admitting, those that are in government, that they've had challenges. There were challenges with delivery, but there has been an improvement in service delivery. And others who are not in government saying, give us an opportunity, we can do better. So I think that would play a critical role. What one is not sure how to measure, you will see, for example, the ruling party has brought its old leaders who have brought a sense of stability, a sense of renewal of the ruling party, but will that be sustained? And that's the question that people, when they're standing in front of the ballot, will asking themselves, whether is this change that we're seeing, is this new wind that is beginning to blow within the ruling party, is it going to be sustained? They're also asking with different other opposition parties, do you have the capacity to lead the country? And that question would be answered by the electorates when they vote and saying, we have trust in this one, we don't have trust in that one.
I want us to crystallize this point. I mean, given the increased insecurity, water and energy crisis in the country, what do you believe are the most pressing issues that you believe will really influence voter behavior in this election?
Certainly, energy would be one of those things. You would remember that in the past month or so, we have not had load shedding. But load shedding has impacted many people's life negatively. Many people have lost jobs. Many businesses have been closed. And the economy is not growing, and it can be attributed partly to that. So energy would play a bigger role. The issue of basic services being provided, that would also play a very big role. People are looking in their neighborhood, are looking in their households, and they realize that services are not delivered as they should. And they're going to ask questions, and that is going to determine how they vote. So the issue of infrastructure would also play a bigger role. Clinic, we still have schools, although there is huge progress that has been made. in eradicating mud schools, schools with deep laterals and all of that. But there is still a lot of challenges that have not been addressed. And people are going to say those things are going to play a big role in people deciding in their minds.
As we continue our coverage in the lead up to these elections, parties like the ANC, the EFF and other leading parties have been seen holding significant rallies respectively. Based on your own research of what you've noted, what are the key strategies and messages that these parties are using to really mobilize their support?
We have seen in these past few weeks that many parties are either saying that trust us, we have not failed you before, we might have had glitches, and the new parties who have not been in government are saying, give us a chance to show you that we can deliver. The strategy of rallies, it has been a strategy that has been used to demonstrate the level of support that they have, political parties have, to also tap on those undecided voters who are still not sure, to say, while you think that we have not done so well, while you are not sure who to vote for, look at how many people support us. And therefore, also think twice or think again about your choice of who you want to vote for. So that has been used. We have also seen that in Durban, for example, we have had EFF marching on the streets of Durban, showing their support, and they're saying they are ready to govern. So in all these instances, I think they're taking that good idiom that says, if you go to a war, sing songs of victory to give you motivation, to motivate your troops towards going to the war. So I think that's what we're seeing.
But how impactful do you think these rallies are in really swaying undecided voters and really galvanizing the base of some of these parties?
Previously, we've seen that this has not actually worked in swaying undecided vote, but it has worked in consolidating your support base. And I do suspect that even in these elections that we're going to, it will help in consolidating the vote that their traditional voter base, but it would not really sway. In fact, many people would question the resources that are used to have these rallies by these different political parties. Booking a stadium, ensuring that we have the infrastructure that we have, busing people from different provinces or different regions to those rallies. So that could be something that might, in fact, especially with the middle class, might raise a lot of question in terms of what is the necessity, the excessive expenditure that is done with these rallies. Is it really acceptable?
So in recent days, and also as recently as today, we've heard from Nat Joints, and with this heightened risk of, call it service delivery protests and potential violence, what role do you think the state and security forces should play to really ensure a peaceful and fair election process?
I think since the 1994 elections, the risk of violence, the risk of lawlessness is very high in these elections because of the new players who somehow seems to be wanting their things or their point of view to be taken or their way to be taken other than anything else. And if that does not happen, then they always threaten with violence, so that it is real. We expect, therefore, state apparents, especially those that are entrusted with defense and law and order, to actually be visible, not only to be visible, but the intelligence to be able to pick up any issues that might be issues, that might be risks, that might be glaring issues that would affect the smooth running of the elections and deal with those decisively. So we expect visibility. We expect them to deal with those, with any threat swiftly in dealing with these issues.
But to crystallize that point, how do you anticipate that these security concerns might even affect voter turnout, particularly in areas that have experienced unrest in the past?
If you look, for example, in the rural areas, let's take, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal, these might be real. People might decide not to go there because they might not feel safe. So it is important then to have visible policy. It is important to assure the general members of the public, not in words, not in press conferences only, but in the manner, in steps, in measures that we put in place, that it is safe for them to go out of their houses and go and stand in the queues and vote. So we would need to ensure that that happens, because the risk is too high that people might decide not to go because of the anticipated violence or lawlessness that might happen.
Thank you so much for your time. That's Professor Ndevu sharing his valuable insights on the upcoming elections.